All right, today we're going to answer a question from a potential prospect who goes by Monica Geller. Obviously, names and amounts have been adjusted a bit to allow for anonymity. But today we're going to discuss her situation, which she has over $2 million investable, and she's 56, and she wants to know if she can retire now. Okay, Monica's situation here, as we can see in the snapshot quickly, is that she has, like I said, she has a pretty good net worth and she is single. And her situation is she's spending about $8,000 per month right now. And she wants to know if she can retire today at 56 and maintain that same amount of spending in her retirement. So let's take a look at the data and what else she has. So, first, we're going to say here, I can tell real quick just by looking at her snapshot she's obviously done a great job, and she's got some money and some CDs in the bank here, and then she's got investable assets of actually 2.1, some real estate, a little bit of a mortgage, but with only like a very low, under 3% mortgage rate. So we're not super worried about that. But then I can see here that she has a large tax deferred asset right here with 1.8 million that she's going to pay tax on at some point in her future, right? So sometimes we call that a tax bomb because it can really add to lifetime tax liability if not managed properly. Okay, now let's take a look at her blueprint. So here is Monica's blueprint, and she has two kids, Phoebe 2 and Chandler Jr. And they are both still in college, so she is expecting to spend about $100,000 or so in college expenses to get them through and out the door and on their own, hopefully, right? Okay, but as we can see here, she has a primary home, she has the mortgage as I discussed, she has the CDs, bank account, and then she has about $950,000 in her 401k, and then about 850 in an IRA, and then $300,000 in an individual brokerage account. Okay, now let's take a quick look at her goals. As I mentioned, she wants to retire now, so at 56, and her retirement expenses are going to be the same as what they are today, which is about $8,000 per month. And then we also, as I mentioned, she's gonna have a little bit of college expenses for Chandler Jr. and Phoebe too. Okay, as she retires today, she is going to have these expenses and she's not going to have any more income, right? At least not until we flip on Social Security, which we have just put in there at full retirement age, which for her is going to be 67. So 11 years from now, right? So quite a ways away. She is going to be living on her assets until that time, which she'll have a little bit more income coming from Social Security. So let's take a look at what that means. The summary of cash flows. Okay, so as I mentioned, the $8,000 that she wants to spend is going to be after tax money, right? So that's going to be $96,000 of living expenses. She's going to have housing, which that housing is basically going to be her tax and also paying down her mortgage, which I mentioned. She's paying a little bit more than what is absolutely necessary, so she's going to pay that a little bit early. But again, she has a very low mortgage rate of 2.75, I believe. So we're not worried about her getting that paid off right now. She could pay that off at any time because she has the funds to do it, right? But again, a low mortgage rate, so it's not a huge concern. Okay, so now we go back here, we look at her expenses, and then of course we mentioned the goals, right? So on top of that, she has education. So she's got about a little bit, this is showing a little bit under $100,000 left to pay for Phoebe 2 and Chandler Jr., right? So she's got a couple more years of that, and that will be taken care of as well. But as you can see here, if we look at net flows, as I mentioned, she's got no more income because she's going to be retired, right? So over here, if we look at net flows, this is how much she's going to have to take from her investments to live the way that she lives, spending the $8,000 per month. So as you can see, it's also inflation adjusted, 2.5% of her expenses, because obviously we're going to have inflation of some sort. We just don't know what it's going to be. But I still feel like between 2 and 3% is probably a good estimate long term, even though that is in flux a lot. But we can always change those numbers if you like. Remember that the goal with these is to basically get a map for you so you have a good starting point of where you're going to be. Because right when you walk out the door, things are going to start to change, right? And that's why it's good to always walk with someone in your situation, because the goals and the plan of what you're going to need is going to change, certainly over a 30 or 40 plus year retirement. Okay, now let's also take a look at her withdrawal rate and see if this is going to work for her. Okay, so we always want to look at withdrawal rate and make sure that what she is spending and what she has coming in are sustainable throughout her retirement. And I run these plans to age 90 Obviously, once people get in their 80s and get closer to that age, then we can make adjustments from there. Or if something comes up, God forbid, earlier, we can make those adjustments. But certainly being relatively young at 56, we're going to just run it to age 90. And then, as I mentioned, obviously that's a long time from now. So we're going to have to make adjustments throughout, right? But if we start looking here, 6.6 is kind of the higher end of a withdrawal rate that I would want to do. But since it's only for a few years, and we drop back down to about 4 or 5%. And then we see once Social Security kicks in here at 67, it drops down to 4, then 3%, and then it starts ticking back up, right, as she ages. But as I mentioned, this is not a bad situation to be in. And let's take a look here. I have what this assumes her this, and this of course is run through thousands of Monte Carlo simulations. If she does nothing, it's showing that her plan at age 90 is she's going to have about $8.6 million at the end of her plan. And this is if she changes nothing and keeps spending the $8,000 as she is right now. So pretty good situation, right? And then here we say, if we look at a percentage, it shows a 74% probability of success. Now, this is a little bit misleading, but basically what that means is there's a 26% chance that we're going to have to make changes, which we're always going to make changes anyway. So sometimes people say, hey, I want you up at 90 or whatever. But then if you're at 100, then that's basically a 100% chance that you are going to not spend enough in your retirement, which some people, live the way they want and they're at 100% and they're comfortable with that. But I always am like, hey, look, you got choices here. You got 100%. You might as well do something to try to, maximize your life in retirement, right? Because that's what we want to do. Let's take a look at a few changes. So sometimes in retirement, a lot of times you'll have expenditures. Certainly if you retire younger, you'll probably spend more early on in retirement. Maybe hang out with your family, maybe going traveling, doing whatever, right? So we have the situation where it's called the SMILE retirement spending, which means that you're going to spend a little bit more upfront and then probably have a little lull until you get to the end of life in which your healthcare costs go up. So if we say, hey, look, we're going to do the SMILE spending strategy, then she has an 88% probability of success. Now, again, this is a 12% chance, which is a lot lower, obviously, than 26% chance of saying, hey, we're going to have to make some changes. We do like this strategy because it's very standard, right? Now, I see that even with my own family, are relatively healthy and getting around well. They've done a lot. They get to this point and they're like, hey, maybe we're in our 70s or so. We're going to start slowing down a little bit. We're still going to do what we want, but we don't need to do all the stuff that we used to do, right? No desire anymore to do that. They just want to see their family and have a good time. No problem. So it is pretty standard. Okay, so let's take that. We took a quick look at that. Let's go back. Now, as I mentioned, this is a perfectly good situation. So yes, she could retire today and have a very good probability of success in her retirement. But let's take a quick look. Even if she said, okay, you know what if I want to raise that up and spend maybe $10,000 per month instead of $8,000? Okay, well, let's see what that does. Now that drops that down to a 38% probability of success. So obviously, she is going to make things a little tighter, right? And it still shows at the end of her plan at age 90, she's going to have about $1.4 million of investable assets, but we're not sure how that's going to work out. All right. And another big thing that we do at my firm is tax planning, right? Because a big goal in retirement is to make sure that we are limiting lifetime tax liability, usually our largest expense in retirement. And people that don't plan to manage their lifetime tax liability are always going to end up spending more. I can almost guarantee it from everything that I've seen. But let's take a quick look at her tax strategy. We put everything back to the way it was at the beginning. Now, what we're going to focus on here, as you can see, by using these strategies, she's going to have about 1.9 million more in tax-adjusted ending assets. So not chump change, right? And pay almost $1 million less in taxes. Now, how does that happen? Well, the three big things that we're going to do is Roth conversions, and I've already run the numbers here so we know what to do, but that's converting up to about the 12% tax bracket, which is a little tight because she's going to be filing individually, but she's still not going to have any income. So that gives us a few years where we can do some decent sized Roth conversions, right? Until Social Security kicks in, and then we're going to have to make that change. But every single year we're going to look at her taxable situation and we're going to say, hey, we want to do this. We want to do this because we want to thread that needle with limiting lifetime tax liability. Now, the three things that we're going to do the other two things besides Roth conversions are we're going to do equity allocation. What the heck does that mean? Well, that means that if you have your growth investments, you want to put those in a Roth or even a taxable account because you're going to have better tax status. You're going to have something go from 10 to 100 over time. You want to let that be in a Roth, right? Because you're not going to pay any tax line when it comes out. You don't want to be in your tax deferred account because it goes from 10 to 100. Well, you're going to have to pay tax on that 100. You're going to be in the 7 bracket ordinary income rates, right? And then also sequence of withdrawal. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, where you take the money from in retirement can really have a large impact on your income for that year. And then, of course, subsequent years. And certainly it can make a very large impact as well over the lifetime of your retirement. So by doing these 3 things, making sure that we're doing equity allocation right, and we're doing sequence of withdrawal correctly, and converting the proper amount of into a Roth each year to mitigate your lifetime tax liability over time, it's going to save almost, or is going to add almost $2 million of tax adjusted ending assets, right? Now let's take a look at a visual of that. So here, all the blue is if we did nothing, right? No, we didn't pay attention to where we were taking. We just take the same amount from each account. We didn't do any Roth conversions, right? Well, here we go. We're going to have all this lifetime tax liability, right? Now, if we do all of those things, 3 things that I discussed, it's going to flatten that curve, right? And we're going to alleviate all this tax that you would have to start paying more on at about age 74, right? Now, why is that? Well, if you let your tax deferred accounts keep growing the way they are, well, then your R&Ds are going to be higher and higher, and that's going to cause you to step up in the 7 bracket ordinary income tax brackets. We don't want to do that when we can mitigate this, right? If we can convert some stuff now, right here in these years where we have the gap years between retirement and when R&Ds kick in, well, we're gonna flatten that retirement tax amount, and it's also going to prevent about the same age in the mid 70s your Parts B and D premium of your Medicare, right? Those are based off your AGI, your adjusted gross income. And if we can bring that down, well, then we're going to also pay, not only are we going to be in a lower tax bracket later on, but we're also going to have lower Parts B and D premium, which of course everybody wants that, right? Now, sometimes I tell actually not much, but one time I had a guy say, "Oh, Tim, I don't care about taxes in my 70s or 80s. I'll just be happy to be there." Well, let me tell you what, I have clients in their 80s and 90s, and they still don't like a large tax bill. And some of them didn't do these strategies back, 10, 20 years ago. And so now they have to pay really high amounts in their Parts B and D premium and Medicare, and their tax rate is a lot higher than it had to be had they done the proper planning at the time. So if any of this sounds good to you and you would like these principles applied to your situation specifically, go to erwealth.com and book a call, and we'd be happy to start the process with you. Thank you very much and have a great day. Once again, Tim Dorman here, founder of Eagle Rich Wealth Advisors. And if you would like to see how we help our clients get the most out of their financial lives in retirement, please visit us at erwealth.com, and we hope to see you there.